normally gives a fairly good donation. We're asking them to give us a little bit more this year as well. So if you can, be as generous as possible, and thanks again for your help. Cheers.
But that is an enabling provision. We have to do the real work. We can't just sit there and say, well, no, that's grand, our problems are fixed, because quite honestly they're not. We have to look at other things coming at us, the possibility of how are we going to fix wages in a more deeply integrated Eurozone. How is that to be done? Because bear in mind that we'll all be expected to be like Germans in the future, and we don't have a tradition of that, of very low levels of wages. But what you have to understand is German workers are willing to do that because it is connected to the social market economy, and the social wage that they get makes a big difference. I'll give you just one example of this. We had a colleague working with us some time ago at Congress who was Swedish, and he decided to go back to Stockholm for personal reasons. But in any event, when he was working with us, he was paying €780 a month for childcare. He was paying €80 a month in Stockholm.
Dominic, if you don't mind me.
Can I just put it in here a little bit like that, so you get this right into the middle.
Brilliant.
That's it. Thank you very much for your time. That's lovely. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. This way, please. Just hold it up, please. Thank you. Just hold it up, please.
Can I take this job?
You can, of course. No problem at all. Thank you very much. Hold it up, please. Thank you. That's lovely.
The dynamic of the union, obviously, with the moratorium on recruitment that has been in has changed, and it's been quite difficult to get young people.
A scheme in terms of a loan scheme or a graduate tax is something that we completely oppose, and I think it's important when we talk about employment as well that we link it in to education, and I think in order for every sector of society to be able to access higher level education, we need to ensure that we're on the right side of this debate.
And I think that we need to get back to those type of meetings where we encourage people, young people again, just to explore what it is in society that they want to change. And I think that's the way you get people involved.
To afford it. The really worrying thing about the situation facing young people is that in the 4 years that I've been representing students, there seems to be an enormous change of thinking, whereby previously young people and graduates who were doing the same work and had the same responsibilities for something, it was generally accepted that they could be expected to be paid and to be treated in the very same way, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And I suppose the big challenge for trade unions, in my view, is that when you look at these issues like the welfare cuts and like zero-hour contracts, precarious work, low pay and training wages for young people, and the internship culture, is that are we going to allow this to be a temporary situation brought about by the recession, or are we going to allow it to be a long-term structural and cultural change in terms of how the state treats its young people?
The noise is beginning to emerge, perhaps over time into a crescendo, that the pay cuts have to be reversed earlier than the provision in the Haddington Road Agreement 2017-18. Before the talks concluded, your General Secretary, on behalf of the Public Services Committee of Congress, clearly indicated to the Minister and the assembled Secretary Generals that if the economy improved and that if public finances improved sufficiently, unions would be back to the negotiating table before that period. That's not a matter for me to decide. I don't know even if I'd be around to chair the talks. But certainly that message went loud and clear at the conclusion of those talks, and now is being repeated throughout the public service unions that have assembled this year.